everyone, and welcome to week 2 and torts versus crimes. Now, this week you're going to be studying about what a tort is as opposed to a crime. What's interesting is that when one commits a criminal act, there's also a form of a tort that may be associated with that criminal act. For example, if somebody murders someone, then that person will be charged with the crime of murder, but the family of the victim may also sue for wrongful death. If somebody trespasses on one's property, that person may get arrested for trespass, but the individual that owns the property may also may also sue the individual for trespass and any damages that were associated with that trespass. So it's kind of a very interesting thing, but with a crime, an individual is being punished, and sometimes they're losing their liberty or their freedom. So the burden of proof is much different in a criminal action as opposed to a civil action. So when you're thinking about crimes, you think about it from that standpoint. The difference is with a civil wrong, you have to pay somebody for what they've done wrong, try to put them back in the situation they otherwise would have been in, whereas with criminal action, you're taking the person out of society. So with a criminal action, you're looking at determining that the individual who's being accused of the wrongful act, the crime, is beyond a juror's reasonable doubt that in fact that person actually committed that crime. With a civil wrong, you're looking at beyond the preponderance of the evidence, which means that the evidence weighs more in favor of the plaintiff or the defendant depending on the circumstances. Is it 55%? Is it 60%? Is it 75%? Basically, the plaintiff has to prove their case. If the plaintiff provides enough evidence to convince the jury or the judge, whoever the trier of fact is, that the defendant actually did the wrong that caused damage to the plaintiff, then the plaintiff has proven the plaintiff's case. If the defendant pokes enough holes or has a valid defense to what the plaintiff is accusing the defendant of doing, then you would arguably hold in the favor of the defendant. So it's by a preponderance of the evidence as opposed to beyond a reasonable doubt. So think about that when you're going through the materials this week. You are going to be completing certain assignments. There's the videos and all the readings are listed in the lecture and assigned readings folder, but popping down to the homework folder, you have a matching activity to complete, and you also have a module 2 writing assignment. This is your first writing assignment, and it's the case analysis. You're going to be looking at the Shook versus First Data case, and it's a modified version. I cut it down because there was a lot of information, as in many cases, that you don't necessarily need to have in order to analyze a case. You may not, this is not a research project, so you're not going to go outside of the confines of that case in order to pull the facts out of them. So you're looking at just pulling the facts out of them. I do want you to watch the tutorial or take a look at the tutorial regarding how you actually locate the facts, what a fact is, and things of that nature. Then you have the module 2 discussion. Now a fact is, when you're looking at the facts, you're looking at the circumstances behind the plaintiff suing the defendant. This is a civil case. So in doing so, you're looking at what facts led up to the plaintiff feeling it needed to sue the defendant. Also, what facts in the case support any valid defenses that the defendant may utilize to argue against the plaintiff's case. So you don't look at the case history, in other words, how it got from point A to point B. What you're looking at are, what are the circumstances of the case? So if somebody's in an automobile accident, the circumstances of the case are that Amy was driving her car, texting while she was driving, ran a stop sign, and hit Jared, who was riding across the street outside the crosswalk, but riding his bike across the street properly with the light, and was hit by Amy. So As a result, he fell off his bike. He broke his leg. He broke a collarbone, and those were some of his injuries. And he is a waiter, so he wasn't able to wait tables for a significant period of time. So when you're looking at that, you're saying, okay, well, that means that the facts of the case are that Amy was on her cell phone texting. We don't know who she was texting, but she's texting on her cell phone, not paying attention to what she was doing, arguably, and therefore ran the stop sign at X Street, at the cross intersection of X Street and X Street. And Jared was riding his bike across the street, and he was riding with, there was not a light, sorry. He was riding across the street, but he was outside the crosswalk, which means he was between where the cars stop and the crosswalk rather than on the other side of the crosswalk. And that's what Amy hit him. So when you're analyzing and you're pulling out the facts, you're pulling out the facts of what exactly happened that led to the plaintiff suing the defendant. And when you think about that, think about what information you're pulling from, or circumstances you're pulling from the case that can be supported by actual evidence. Now, with that said, I'm going to click in real quick to the tutorials folder. And for the tutorials folder, you'll see tutorials on different ways to look at the cases. You're completing the issue evaluation form, which is right here. And when you're completing that form, you're going to click onto that. There's an issue evaluation tutorial that takes you through it, and then there's how to read a legal case that takes you through that as well. So, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact your instructor, who's always there for you. Have a great week 2.